talk. I could edit out the beginning.
You can, answer the questions, and I'll just add in anything if at the end. Did you say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any questions? Okay. So the lesson that I will teach next week on Thursday is the beginning of chapter 10, or where we start chapter 10, chapter 11 with rational expressions. So the learning outcome, the expected learning outcome that I have is that the students will be able to, 1, simplify rational expressions, and 2, identify all the values excluded from the domain in the rational expression. And so the characteristics of the learners that have been incorporated into this is that they are going to use their prior knowledge and experiences with previous problems that they've done, for example, if they're factoring and simplifying fractions. I'm going to use the PowerPoint, which is something that I think that they're used to and learn best from, as well as a packet of notes that go with the PowerPoints that they fill in as we go. So I think those will follow along kind of what they're used to and what they learn best from, I would say, from my week here. So some of the prereq knowledge and skills that they need would be simplifying fractions, being able to eliminate common factors, factoring, finding the GCF with factoring. That uses the cross-box method that you guys call it. Fractions and the terminology of fractions, knowing that top is numerator, bottom's denominator. Basic arithmetic, of course. And then exponent properties as well. Knowing that when you have x squared over x, that you subtract the powers, you have just x. So just for those students that are not up to par with what I'm assuming they should have as prerequisite knowledge, I have the warm-up in the beginning that will kind of go over and refresh them on factoring as well as simplifying fractions. So hopefully that will catch them up. If not, if they still are behind, then within the lesson there's examples that I fully explain and model for them. So that way they have a step-by-step process they can kind of follow, as well as practice problems that I will model. What else? Let's see, so the way I organize the lesson, I have it written out here. So I started with a warm-up, and I haven't decided if I want to, I have 5 different factoring ones, kind of a variety. Ones where they can just, has no leading coefficient, one has the leading coefficient, ones that don't. Ones where they just have to find a GCF to take out. Simplifying the fractions, just because this is some of the problems, I'm not sure if that might be included in the warm-up. I haven't decided yet. I think I might, but I don't know if 7 problems will be too much as a warm-up. It probably will. And I think the key thing to get at is the factoring, as opposed to the simplifying fractions. I think more will understand that than the factoring. So 5 problems it is. And then, so the title would be Rational Expressions for 11.2. And then I'll do a slide with the vocabulary, because I like to include the vocabulary words that are used, and a definition, as well as putting up an example of what it means. So for the vocab, I have rational expression and excluded values. The rational expression, I changed the way it's worded in the book. So I put a fraction whose numerator and denominator are polynomials, hoping that they know what a polynomial is. And then the excluded values, I just kept that as it was. Changed it a little, but any values of variables, any value of a variable that makes the denominator equal to 0. Then I'm going to include steps on how to determine the excluded values. So step 1, to factor the denominator completely. Step 2, to set the denominator equal to 0. And then 3, solve for the variable. I think that's the easier way than trying to sit there and go, okay, if we have m minus 6, what minus 6 would be 0? If they have an actual equation to solve, I think it might make it easier. I wanted to do a slide that had steps to simplifying the rational expressions, but there's only really 2 steps. You would factor the numerator and denominator and then eliminate all common factors. And then I would add in that question, how can you tell if a rational expression is in simplest form? Which the answer is the numerator and denominator have no common factors other than 1 or -1. So cover that, and then I'll jump into practice problems. Probably do one example from the first ones will just be to find the excluded values. There's 3 of those, and then I have 7 of simplifying and stating the excluded values of a variety. So I'll probably show 1 of the first ones and 2 of the second ones. And then as far as homework problems, from the book, I got numbers 12 through 7, which are just finding the excluded values. And then 22 through 38, just the evens. And those are simplifying and finding excluded values. And then I included in these 45 and 46, they're word problems that kind of challenge to get them thinking why or how you can tell that they're excluded or why they would be. So I think that would be good for them to think about extra in there. So that's kind of organization of the lesson that I have. So as far as it maintaining continuity, it's the next chapter, but it does follow off of previous material that was covered as far as factoring and all that. And within the lesson, it's scaffolded in a way that each builds on each other. And it gets more progressively challenging, so that way they end up, having to do problems on their own. And this does fit into the larger curriculum because it satisfies some of the Common Core standards, as well as prepares them for future math classes once they get to high school. So as far as supporting equitable student participation, the students will come up and participate on the board following the lesson the second day when they go over the practice problems, all that they've completed, as well as I hope that they'll be able to discuss with each other during the ones that we are working on in class that first day, be able to talk to each other on how to figure out the problem. So there's the paired discussion with their peers next to them, the class discussion with all of us going over the problem, and then as well as the next day they'll come up to the board and do it themselves. So this lesson I kind of did based off of constructivist and sociocultural theory with the group discussion, the class participation, and the scaffolding. So that kind of sums up everything I have for Thursday. And we'll hope it goes smoothly.
I would add just a couple things for the third question. Prerequisite knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe explain what undefined values are.
Okay.
Why you're excluding the values.
Okay.
I think you
That's
had it
okay.
in there, but
Yeah.
and also solving quadratic equations, which is part of the factoring.
Excluding the value, and then solving, include steps for solving type of a thing, solving quadratic, or
Yeah,
just
after the factoring. You know how you set it equal to 0?
X, I never really got okay.
And then I think they're good at solving equations. As you've seen, they probably need to review the factoring a little bit. And so for students who don't have the prerequisite skills, maybe give them a few review examples on a worksheet or something.
Okay.
If you want to do that.
I did include that in here, I guess I didn't say. I did put in there that I was going to include in the packet, but wasn't going to do it on the warm-up.
Oh, okay.
Where did I put it? I put, oh, in the packet I'll provide examples on how to factor, so that way they have it visually there. I just forgot to say that part, so.
Maybe you did say it, I just.
No, I don't think I
No,
did.
I
But
didn't
yeah, I was thinking of just including that in the packet, so it's just in there, and it's not a slide that we go over on the PowerPoint, but it's something that they can just have already
Right.
printed out to look at. Anything else?
That sounds good to me.
I'll just hope it goes smoothly. I think that answers all of our main questions. Oh, the last one, the assessment part, how I will determine if the students have made progress towards applying these concepts, and that they've acquired these new skills. So the second day, I do want to do just a 2-question warm-up to see that they won't be able to work with other people, but they'll be able to use their packet to see if they've understood the material on the second day. That way it kind of gives me that small formal assessment on whether they understood the material. As far as the day of the